we do not allow taping or photographs of our speakers unless they are in agreement. And we are getting his approval to videotape today.
Good.
The minutes of our March 19th meeting, the treasurer's report, and the agenda for today's meeting are over here.
Sorry about it. But those two people are going to join, so really
Okay, that's fine.
let you know.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
As I was mentioning, our minutes for the March meeting, the treasurer's report, and the agenda for today's meeting are on the table here on the side. Our treasurer hasn't arrived yet, so we'll postpone her report. Wanted to thank everyone that came to our annual luncheon and style show yesterday.
Thank you.
Thank the committee members that worked so hard. We really planned for about a year. You know, we'll start planning next year, so
No.
next week. Yeah. But again, thank you. for-
MC right here.
Yes, okay, we'll get John next year. Yeah, but thank you for coming and for supporting us. Okay, our program on May 21st will be presented by Alex Moreno. Some of you may know him. He's the president of Las Porciones Genealogy Society in Edinburgh. And he's an attorney and a former state representative in Hidalgo County. And he's going to talk about the 50th anniversary of the farm worker strike in Starr County. He was one of the people that was involved, and he got arrested. And it's quite an interesting story. We're working on a program for June. We will not be meeting in July. We're going to take a month off, but we will resume in August and continue through November. And that brings up one item that I wanted to discuss with y'all. What do you think of the society taking 1 month off during the summer? Is that something y'all are in favor of? I mean, it's booked this year, but for following years, is July a good month, or June, or August? Yes.
A lot of people go on vacation in July, so I think it's a good idea.
I second.
Okay. Right, well, you know, wanted to bring it to the membership to see what the consensus is something that we want to
I
do.
think so.
Basically, we'll be taking 2 months off. If we take July and then December, we traditionally take the month off to celebrate and relax maybe. But, okay, I have a motion to,
I had a motion to take off July
in 2018 and following
28.
years.
Yes.
Okay, and seconded
second.
by Alonso.
Alfonso, yeah.
Alfonso, sorry.
It's okay.
Al, I'll be safer that way. Okay, any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries, thank you. Do want to remind you to visit our website and our Facebook page. If you have any items to contribute, please help us out with that. Last month, I announced that we would be attending a one-day genealogy and local history symposium in McAllen. Ophelia, Annie, Irene, and I attended. And Ophelia and I presented Beginning Your Family Tree. Our society had a booth. We sold a couple of books, and we were able to network with other people. They gave us a nice certificate of participation, and this was their program. Their main speaker was Stephen Gonzalez at Camino Real de los Tejas National Historic Trail, and they're concentrating mainly, I think, on the trail that went up through Laredo, but they did talk about trails that went through this area, but nobody's pursuing them at this point. I'm going to pass these around and let you take a look at them, starting with Joan. Society newsletter went out. Mary Esther is our editor, and if you'd like to say a few
Well,
words.
thank you so much.
It was excellent.
Yours, but I got two back. If you were, Christina Martinez, if you're here, I don't have your correct email, and Joe Vidales. Those are the only two that I got back.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay.
I'll check it.
Okay, let's check the emails.
Mhm.
Other than that, send me something. Okay.
We publish quarterly. So
Yes, quarterly.
Now, time to start getting.
I
into
receive
the-
every day.
Yes. Also, our 2017 journal is in progress, so Ophelia, you want to give us the deadline? We've changed the deadline.
Yes, I really would prefer if you could send me everything you have by the middle of May, because I'm going to be busy. I have to get all the books in order, all the information ready for the baptism book. I have to do all the research on the photos, and I have to write down what gears are missing and all that for the introduction to the book. So I have to do all of that, plus I have to go back and check on all the pages that we've done for the baptism book. And then I also have to get the journal together all before the end, or by the middle of June, because I won't be in town to do it. So everything has to be ready to be printed by June 15th. So I need to have the information to work with,
Mhm.
hopefully by May 15th, or at the very latest, May 3rd.
Indexing projects, back to Ophelia.
I told you where I am with the indexing project.
Okay. Alrighty. And we've talked about volunteer opportunities, and get back on my soapbox. We still are in need of a vice president. Tony Garza is graciously serving at this time. Ophelia is filling in for secretary. If any of you are interested in either of those positions, let me know. Thank you to you two ladies for stepping up and helping with that. One of our big needs is with the technology area, keeping up with social media and so forth. That's one area that we really need to emphasize, get our message out to people. And apparently this is how people are communicating at this time. And, if any of you are interested in helping with that, talk to me after the meeting. I do have one other announcement. There's a gentleman in Raymondville, Glenn Hardy. I don't know if any of you know him. He's a local historian, has written some books. He recently donated all his books and materials to the Friends of the Harlingen Public Library. And I think it cost, what, $700 to get them moved from Raymondville, from his home to the library. And the Friends of the Library have been sorting through his collection, and I'm going to circulate this list. They have books that are available now for sale.
Mhm.
There's a lot of Texana. They have the book of Cowboys. They have the history of the Lower Rio Grande Valley by Franklin Cushman Pierce. And anyway, the prices on here are the value, and they're selling for half of that. So I'll circulate this and just make sure I get it back at the end. And, you're interested, her contact information is on this yellow sheet.
Who was the person?
Pardon?
Who told me?
Glenn Hardy. You don't want it.
Yeah, I'm sorry that we're going to reorder the baptism.
Oh, that's right. You want to address that one?
After the baptism books are ready, we're going to print, but I think a lot of people don't realize how much room books take up. And we don't have an office, we don't have a place to keep them, so we have them in our homes. And, our family sometimes is not appreciative of that. So, we would like to limit the number of books that we work. The baptisms are going to be the full set from A through Z, from 1800 to 1850. So we would like to know more or less whether you're interested in purchasing the book. I don't believe we've had a final say-so on how much they're going to be, but they were a lot of work, a lot of work. So I think maybe $40 to $50 is a fair price. So that's how much you can expect to pay per volume. We're going to have to do it in 2 volumes. Each one of those surnames, say the letter A. The letter A had 5 pages that we indexed, and each page had close to 100 names. So there's 500 names of just the letter A. Now the letter G had 25 pages. That's 100 times that. So they're going to be thick books. So we can only do that in maybe in the 2 volumes. And each volume will be $40 to $50. So you need to know that before you decide one book. Or maybe you only want one volume from N through L or A to G or whatever. So maybe we can know more or less. If you're interested, please raise your hand so we can do it as a count.
I can't hear it.
So we would need to know. So is anybody interested? To pre-work behind me. So then, and then of course the other, the people who help me index would be getting 3 books.
Well, that's a perk for indexes. You get a published copy of
The
the
reason
work
to
that you
volunteer.
contributed to, so that's only fair. Thank you.
Just Matamoros, yes. What year? 1850. To 1850. All electric.
Thank you. Our treasurer, Annie Barrera is here. Would you like to give your report?
Mary, we cannot hear you over here.
Okay. I'll talk louder.
Yeah, it's good. It's the first thing to go is, first thing to go is their hearing.
Let me repeat what I said about the Matamoros baptisms, okay? You know we've been indexing. We're going to be finishing before June 15th, we're going to publish. And we wanted to know if you wanted to pre-order the books. It's going to be a 2-volume set, but you can order each volume separately. Each volume will be between 40 and 50. The board has to decide how much we're going to sell them for, because they were a lot of work. And I was trying to say about how big these books are going to be. The surnames, say we started with the letter A, had 5 pages that we had to index, and each page had 100 names. The letter G had 25 pages, and each page had 100 pages, 100 names. So you can imagine how big these books are going to be, or how thick. That's why we have to do it in 2 volumes, from A through L probably, and N through Z, or maybe A through G, because it's so big. And so we need to know more or less if you're going to be interested in buying. That's why I was trying to give you the prices more or less, so you could understand that before you say, yes, I want to know it's too expensive. But it was a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So you have to, I think you have to index to help us so you can appreciate how much work it is, and then say, that's cheap.
The ice cream. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
our balances for the end of March is, our receipts were a total of $1,235, and our disbursements was $75, which was the accountant that takes care of our books. We did the filing for the franchise tax and the IRS form that's due. So it gives the balance of $1,260 for March, and a balance in the bank of the bank statement is $11,425, and we have reserved in a couple of accounts leaving us a operating budget of $8,711.54. And we'll be recapping the fundraiser from yesterday. I think we're going to do pretty good. The raffle brought in about 730. We still need to recap the rest of the ticket sales, and I'm waiting for one more bill. But I think we're going to be all right with that fundraiser. Thank everybody for everything that you did, all aboard, donations, everything. Thank you. And I'll be back there if anybody needs memberships. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, let's see if we can get this on. Can you hear me now? I hated to be over here, I'm so far away from you, but I just have one more item and then I'll introduce our speaker. I wanted to remind you that the 38th Annual Texas Hispanic Genealogical and Historical Conference, Preserving Our Past for the Future, is September 28th through 30th at the Crown Plaza, Austin. It's being hosted by the Tejano Genealogy Society of Austin. And you can look for the society on Facebook or at their website, tgsaustin.org.
One more time? One more time, please?
tgsaustin, one word, .org. And they may have posted more current information. Ophelia and I are already making plans to go, so love for the rest of you to come with us. Okay?
May I make an announcement?
Yes.
Regarding the conference, Mary and I are going to be going early so we can do some research at the Catholic Archives. And we'd be glad to search if you have anybody you want us to search for. If you know that your grandparents, great-grandparents got married at the Immaculate Conception Cathedral, and you know the date, and you know they were married in the Catholic Church, give us the date and we'll get you the original from the Catholic Archives. If you don't know, having your ancestors, I don't know the exact date or whatever, you go to the county and you ask for the county record, when they got the license, and you look at the county license, and at the very bottom, it tells you, the priest will say, I married such and such and such and such on this date, and then it's signed. If it's signed by the JP, well then you can't look at the church. But if it says a priest, OMI, whatever, they were married by the priest. So that's what you have to give me. You have to give me the date and the names. And we will go and find it if we can and bring it to you. Next month, I'm hoping to index the ones I have at home and bring them. Maybe I already have them. I don't know. Bring them so you can look through my list of the ones I've indexed for the Immaculate Conception. Yes.
Then that's how you found my family.
Yes.
And that's how we started our family tree.
Yes.
And for that marriage certificate I had from the church.
Yes.
Where I found my great-grandfather.
Yes, Henderson. Yes.
Okay, back to the
We're
She
going
wants
in
the Immaculate Heart of
September.
Mary in Bronzeville.
I thought I'd just tell you now so that if you don't have the date, you can go to the county.
Okay.
And in Harlingen, you go to the county annex building over there, by whether you get your car registration. You can go there and ask. And that's if you have the date. Okay? That's the copy. If you don't know the date, then you have to look it up in the film. Or you can go there and ask, I don't know when they were married, these are the names I'm searching for, and you show them.
I mean, they're literally either 3/4 or fully covered in metal, all right? Which in the seething heat of the Americas, you can imagine temperatures at 115, 120 degrees in this stuff. You could boil stuff on top of you. And so it's one of those things where these Indians were there to transport most of his stuff, but they were also there to fight alongside of him. Because Cortez tells the Tlaxcalans, I'm not here for you. I'm here for the Aztecs. I have heard that the Aztecs are fabulously rich, and they've got all this money, and they've got all this wealth, and I'm going to get a piece of it. All right? And the Tlaxcalans are more than happy to lend their assistance, because the Aztecs have been a thorn in their side since the very beginning. One of the things the Aztecs would do on a yearly basis is they would wage what were called garland or flower wars. And this is what we get from the Spanish. Basically, the Aztecs in the early days had an abundance of people that would sacrifice themselves. Right? Aztec human sacrifice was the biggest honor that you could basically do. Because in Aztec legend, which comes largely from the Mayans and the Toltecs and people that came before them, the only way that the sun rises each day is if a certain amount of blood has been spilled. If you don't spill blood, the sun doesn't come up. Now, many of you are like, well, that's really dumb, right? What if we just don't sacrifice anybody? Do you want to take that chance, being a very religious society? And remember, the kind of gods the Aztecs believe in, these are not gods that are, going to give you detention for 30 minutes after school. These are gods that are going to curse you and every one of your followers until the end of time. You don't want to find out what happens. So the Aztecs, because they were short on captives, would declare war on all their neighboring peoples once a year. And they would basically go and fight them with the sole purpose of capturing their warriors alive so that they could sacrifice them at various festivals. And according to the Spaniards, the record of killings at one festival was at the rain god Tlax festival, where over 50,000 people were sacrificed at once in one day. Now, to us, it's hard for us to believe, but you also remember it's very difficult for the Spaniards to believe as well. The Spaniards, being devout Catholic Christians who've been taught to honor life, are now seeing this kind of stuff. What are they going to think? Are they going to be willing to negotiate with the Aztecs?
No way.
No, they're the devil. This is everything the priests have told us about. This is Satan incarnate. So the best thing that we can do is arrange the meeting between them and the evil Lord as quickly as possible. All right? Literally, we're going to just dispatch thousands of them if necessary. The Spaniards have no hesitation to kill, maim, destroy their food supplies, spread disease. Whatever they've got to do to win, they don't feel bad about it, because to them, they've got a righteous mission. What they're doing is God's work. They're slaying the heathen. Who can be more heathen than people that sacrifice other people? Right? Oh, and I forgot to add, you know what they do after they get done sacrificing them? Oh, they eat them. Right? Basically, what you do is you get led to the top of the temple. They put you up. They basically have 4 very strong men flay you out. The priest basically takes an obsidian dagger. He holds it up to the sky. He basically says, "Warrior, willing and unafraid, do you sacrifice yourself to God X?" And of course, your response is, "No, I want to live." And it's a rhetorical question. They don't care what you really say. And they basically proceed to jam it into your breastbone, and they carve your heart out while you're still alive. And the last thing that you see is your beating heart, which they then squeeze to get all the blood to cover you, because that's all sacred blood. They then hand the heart to another priest who inspects it, and then they determine whether or not the god's sake for blood has been sated. And if that happens, then they stop sacrificing. If it doesn't happen, they just keep going until eventually they get to the point where they do. All right? So for devout Spaniards watching this, right, obviously that's going to be problematic. They then cut your body into multiple pieces, and they throw it down the temple steps. That's why you see the steps on all these pyramids. So that way it facilitates arms and legs being able to roll down better. Right? Have you ever been to Chichen Itza? You'll notice the steps are real thin, right? And the reason is because you don't want limbs and body parts to get caught. You want them to keep rolling down the edge, because the people at the bottom are waiting for them, all right? People are trying to catch them. In fact, people in the crowd get into fights over who gets the arm, the leg, the head, other various body parts that are rolled down. And the reason is because they're going to take it home and they're going to eat it. And the reason they eat it is because this person was sacrificed to a god. The essence of the god is now inside that person. If you consume their flesh, you've now got a god inside. Good things are going to happen to you. Good fortune is going to come your way. All right? But imagine you're Cortez and his men and you see this happen. So this is why in many cases the Spanish showed no quarter. This is why there were so many misunderstandings between the two sides. The Aztecs basically send a series of emissaries to the Spaniards, and the Spaniards basically respond with, "We would like to come and meet your noble Emperor Moctezuma." All right? And the Aztecs think that's a bad idea. Right? In fact, the Aztecs give the Spaniards gifts, because in Aztec culture, giving gifts is like telling someone to buzz off. All right? It's kind of like, at Christmas, my aunt shows up, I don't really want to talk to her, I just give her a gift, and then I got something to do, I'll see you later. Well, that's what the Aztecs do. They give you a gift, and it's kind of like, here's some stuff, you can go away. We're done with you, all right? Well, they give the Spanish gifts, but of course, in Spanish culture, and European culture, giving a gift means,
Stay.
yeah, it means this. I like you. I want to. There's a misunderstanding as far as what getting a gift means. So, and the gifts that they give are made of gold and jade stuff. The Spanish are like, oh, I can sell that. That's really, really wealthy. So, in a way, the Aztecs telling the Spanish to bug off actually makes them more likely to pursue what they're trying to do, which is the conquest of the Aztec Empire. Eventually, when Moctezuma realizes the Tlaxcalans have joined the Spaniards, Cortez's army is now, 5,000, 6,000 strong. That now he's got an army. It's not just 200, 300 guys that I'm worried about. Now it's a whole army. He invites them to come to the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, which at the time was one of the largest cities in the world. Now imagine that you're a Spaniard, right? You live in medieval Spain, right? Renaissance era, early modern, whatever you want to call it. And you maybe have 5 cities that are over 10,000, 20,000 people. Mostly rural, not a lot of big towns. Maybe a town that has 50,000, but that's like gigantic. Like Harlingen would be humongous to you. That's a huge city, all right? And you see a city like Tenochtitlan, which has 300, 350,000 people, right? Canals on every street, huge temples, different colors, animals you've never seen before, turkeys, all right? Potatoes, tomatoes, stuff that, Europe, you don't really have. And obviously people like Bernal Diaz and others who travel with Cortez, that report, we saw things we've never seen and will never see again. Because the sights and the sounds and stuff would have just been overwhelming to your average Spaniard, left the farm maybe once in his life. And so when they eventually get in there, Montezuma begins to negotiate with Cortez and brings him into his personal palace, his summer palace. And all the Spaniards go inside, and he allows them to stay as his personal guests. Well, Moctezuma believes they're not really guests, they're kind of hostages. They're in my palace with my guards. Whenever I want to get rid of them, I can do it. I'm going to see what they have to say, because several people are upset in the Aztec cabinet because they believe that Cortez is part of an ongoing prophecy of the return of the god Quetzalcoatl, or the feathered serpent. There's a story that Quetzalcoatl was removed from the Aztec throne and that he will return at some point in a form of his own choosing. All right? Well, it might be like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. All right? It might be a giant statue. It might be a white guy riding a deer. We don't know. So most of the people interpreted that maybe Cortez is the reincarnation of this god. It's possible. We don't know. But Montezuma doesn't want to get on the wrong side of the heavens. And so he invites the Aztecs in, he gives them food, he basically has a banquet in their honor, he shows them around the city, and he basically treats them like his personal guests. But deep down inside, Montezuma knows at some point I'm probably going to have to get rid of these guys. But I've got the upper hand because they're in my city with my people. I've got over 10,000 warriors under guard in this town. I'm pretty much going to be able to do what I want to do. All right? Cortez basically has to leave Tenochtitlan because word has reached him that the governor of Cuba is upset. Because remember, his mission was supposed to be exploratory, and conquering the Aztec Empire is not an exploratory mission. So basically, the governor has sent a large force of men to intercept Cortez for treason. So Cortez has to go back to the coast with most of his loyal guys. He leaves a few guys in Tenochtitlan to, keep sight of things. And he basically ends up marching to the east. He meets the other Spaniards, and he actually fights a battle against them. He kills some of them and convinces the rest of them to join him. Does anybody know how he convinces them to join him? You're all going to be billionaires by the time you get done. And pretty much every Spaniard who knows what's going on puts their guns down and goes, yeah, I want to be wealthy, all right? So Cortez just doubled the size of his force. When he gets back to Tenochtitlan, it's a completely different city. Right? All the people had kind of smiled and been real polite. Everybody's real angry at the Aztecs. In fact, people throw stuff at him. And when they finally get back to the palace, he gets in there, and basically his number two, a guy by the name of Diego Alvarado, was in there. And he basically goes to him and he says, what happened? You were supposed to keep these people under lock and key. And he goes, well, I kind of made a mistake. It sounds a lot better in Spanish, but in English it's roughly, I accidentally killed half the Aztec nobility last week. Accidentally? Yeah. They came in, they were having some kind of like religious thing, and then they started sacrificing people, and we got real nervous because we thought they were going to sacrifice us, so we just killed them. So now he's got a real problem because there's literally 200,000 angry Aztecs outside the palace, and they want to see their emperor. Well, considering they did away with the royal guard and everybody was inside, now actually Montezuma is Cortez's prisoner. Because he doesn't have anybody left to really support him, because nobody really wants to face the Spaniards. So at this point, the people are trying to knock down the door. They're throwing, basically bricks through the windows. It's getting really bad. So Cortez sends Montezuma out to negotiate with the people. And basically he does all is calm, everything is well. I've talked to the gods, and they've basically told me they're just going to stay for a little bit longer. By the way, if you've got any gold sitting around, obviously the gods would like to have some gold because that's one of the things that they really like. All right, and the people are starting to think something's funny about this. This is a shakedown. We haven't seen the emperor in days. Right? All of these nobles went inside the palace and haven't come back. And as Montezuma is giving his speech, according to the Spaniards, the Aztecs get angry and they start throwing stones, and they hit Montezuma right in the head and they knock him off the wall and kill him. Now the Aztec version is that the Spaniards basically realize that people aren't going to give them any gold, and they realize that there's no need for Montezuma anymore, and they just push him off the wall and kill him. Either way, he's dead, right? With a dead Aztec ruler in your palace, now you've got no negotiating position. So Cortez has to get out of Dodge, and he has to do it fast, because there's 200,000 angry Indians that want to eat him, literally. So literally, at the following night, what is known in Spanish as La Noche Triste, all right? The Spanish end up trying to sneak out late at night as best they can. They put their armor on, they take all the gold they've looted from the palace. Now you remember your average Spaniard is 5'6", 140, 150 pounds, all right? You're weighing about 80, 90 pounds of armor. Now you're trying to carry 100 pounds of gold, all right? They're going to be very weighed down, so they're not going to move quickly. So they're trying to sneak out, and according to the Aztec story, the way they catch the Spaniards is because they've got all this gold. The gold shimmers in the moonlight. There's a full moon that night, and it shimmers. And basically, the Aztec sentries are looking, and there's all this shiny stuff moving towards the bridges. All right? It's just like a whole giant mess of shiny things, which they know is odd. So basically, a woman cries out, and the Aztecs basically start pounding the war drums, and they attack the Spaniards as they're trying to flee. All right? This ends up costing Cortez about 80% of his force. Most of the Spanish are actually killed on La Noche Triste, including the new people he's brought with him. Because the only way to get out, the whole city is in the middle of a lake. And there's only 5 or 6 bridges that you have to cross. Well, the first thing the Aztecs do is go and knock the bridges down. Right? So that way anybody that's inside is going to get killed. The Spaniards try to build a portable bridge, but it fails massively and ends up falling in the lake. So all the guys on horseback, they can swim, because they can swim on their horses. All right? The average guy, it's weighing about 300 pounds of gear, including gold. You better be Michael Phelps. I mean, you better be an Olympic-style swimmer, because you're going straight down. So a lot of these guys either drown in the lake, or they get killed by the Aztecs, or they end up surrendering because they get cut off from the rest of the platoon. Cortez and his guys are able to push forward because they're on horseback, and they're able to escape. And most of the lighter guys, they get through and fight their way off the causeway. Most of the Spanish in the back, they end up getting taken prisoner, or they die, or some of them just kill themselves because they know what's going to happen. All right? So Cortez's mission is a disaster. Right? It looks like the Aztecs have won. Basically, at the Battle of Otumba, they end up surrounding Cortez's force and force him to fight. The only way he's able to survive is because of the cavalry. He launches cavalry charges which scare the Aztecs and force them back. And he limps back into Tlaxcala territory, and he pretty much says, look, I got nothing left. And the Tlaxcalan ruler literally saves Cortez. He says, all right, I'll give you my entire army. All 15,000 men that I have, I'll give them all to you. All the neighboring states, with the help of Malinche, Cortez goes and negotiates with them. They all provide their militaries. And the reason is because they're all sick of the Aztecs. Nobody wants them around anymore. All right? Had they have been in a situation where the Aztecs were lenient to these peoples, Cortez probably wouldn't have won. Right? The political situation was rife for revolution, and Cortez just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And with the help of his translators, he now has an army of about 35,000. Right? So he decides to march on Tenochtitlan again in 1521. And when he gets there, the city is a shell of what it used to be. And largely what had happened was when they took the Spaniards prisoner, they ate them after they'd sacrificed them, of course. All right? The problem is, what is the easiest way to spread smallpox? Direct physical contact. And what better way to get direct physical contact than to put it in your mouth and swallow it? So they ate him, and obviously a lot of these guys had smallpox and various kinds of diseases, so the Indians ended up having a massive smallpox outbreak. Tenochtitlan is a cramped city with hundreds of thousands of people. By the time Cortez gets there, 1/3 of the population of the city is gone. They've all been annihilated by sickness. All right? So Cortez surrounds the city, and he realizes, you know what? Trying to take the city by force, not a good idea. I'll just wait him out. He literally knocks all the bridges down and literally just sits around the city and waits for the disease to take its toll. And eventually, within 6 months, 2/3 of the city is dead by disease. All right? The emperor is dead. They have to elect a new one. All right? And basically what happens is over the next really 6-7 months, there are some small sporadic fighting that takes place on the bridges, and even Cortez's men build a small navy, which basically allows them to bombard the defenses of Tenochtitlan from the lake. But for the most part, it's the disease that does most of the terrible work. And eventually, when the population is reduced by about 85–90%, that's when the Spaniards assault the city. And every day they get a little bit closer, and a little bit closer, a little bit closer. And finally, eventually, when they attack the city, there's almost nobody left. Almost everybody has been vanquished by disease. And by August of 1521, the Aztec capital falls. And when the capital falls, so does the empire. Because the government, pretty much everybody that was left in the royal family, all of those are now either prisoners or dead. And so it's at this point where literally Aztec history pretty much ends. And obviously, as we talk about, Mexican history really begins. Because you have the Spaniards who begin to interbreed with the local peoples, whether they be Tlaxcalan, Aztec, etc. They create a population of mestizos. And these people are literally the foundation of what eventually becomes the Mexican people. All right? And it's basically from this charting, from this progression, that we get the modern nations that exist to this day. All right? Any questions on the conquest of Mexico before I talk about the actual equipment?
That was a lot of good information.
Guns, they make a difference. Equipment makes a difference. But is it the defining factor? No. Cortez was in the right place at the right time. He was lucky. He basically was looked at as a better alternative than what the Aztecs were. He had disease on his side. He had motivated men who knew how to kill. He had thousands of Indian allies that were given to him by his translator. He had all of these things that he utilized. It wasn't just one thing. And that's what largely makes the conquest of Mexico successful. And the conquest of the Incas is very similar. Pizarro doesn't have a lot of men. He has to rely on luck, on being in the right place at the right time, technological proficiency, disease, right? The Incas are in the middle of a civil war, right? All of those things basically are responsible for the eventual fall of both of those great empires. It's not one factor here and there. There's a lot of things that basically that contribute to it. All right, so it's